Unfiltered, uncensored, and unapologetic. This is the Retail Warzone podcast.
The first thing I want to do is Steven reached out to me and said, hey, let's give away some comics. So I posted it on Twitter, but there's a lot of you who might have been on Twitter that did not make the actual cutoff. And, you know, there's people in the chat that doesn't use Twitter. So I'm going to show you what we got going on here. So in honor of tonight's guest, while working in retail, grocery, or service, if you were allowed one superpower, what would it be and how would you use it? Be as descriptive as you want. Best answer wins a set of the retail comics courtesy of Steven Petrivelli tonight. So there you go. So you've got till the end of the show to kind of figure out what you want to do. Don't flood the chat now. Just think about it. When we get towards the end, then you'll be able to throw up what you got, and then we'll go over the Twitter responses, and our guest tonight gets to choose the winner. So, Hybrid wants to know if they're autographed. We'll ask him here in just a minute. So we're going to go ahead and do our typical thing. We're going to get into some headlines. Demand has slowed, but seasonal retail workers remain in short supply. Shocker. Also, the links to all these articles are in the description of the video. 30 retail employees share the things that customers do that they can never forgive. That's a fun one to read. GameStop lays off employees. Again, their earnings just came out. It wasn't really good. So if you want to check out that kind of tomfoolery, go right ahead. This was a good one. Why retail employment plummeted in November. That's definitely worth the read. U.S. Labor Board charges Apple with using illegal tactics against retail workers. Board rules that Apple violated federal law in its effort to prevent unionization. Shocker. This has been all over the news the past few days. Will persistent theft compel Walmart to raise prices or close stores? Let me just say this. Walmart starts closing stores, everybody better duck and run, because when you're the leading employer in 26 out of the 50 states and you start closing stores, there's a storm coming, and everybody better be prepared. Next topic, retail employees see a less chaotic Black Friday, which really goes against some of the financial reporting, trying to beef it up that they're actually, Black Friday was actually pretty decent. I don't think it was. Grocery employees, the missing link for a dream Christmas for retailer and consumer. Well, I don't, as far as Christmas dinners and stuff go, grocery employees are going to be very, very important. Holiday parties, school parties, church parties, all sorts of parties. They're going to, I guess people have cranberry sauce for Christmas dinners as well. We didn't run out, so we're okay. Keeping employees safe in the face of rising retail crime. That's an important one. That's something that really, really needs to be focused on, because as the world gets more unhinged, there was just an article the other day where a lady got into an argument with an employee at Dollar Tree. She finally snapped and called the lady a Karen, and then her husband walloped the lady who called her a Karen, the employee. So it's crazy out there right now. This is a good one. Why some in New Jersey should be forced to work in a retail environment. It's an opinion piece. Yes. Why retail leaders should plan a store visit before the holiday season. A store visit can provide a boost to staff morale and uncover what works well on the retail sales floor. That is the most garbage headline I have ever read out of all these headlines and headaches I've ever done. Because if you work in a store, you know what happens if a planned visit comes. It's chaos. Whoever's coming doesn't see what's going on in that store. They don't know. You got your managers running around working you to death so they don't get in trouble because they haven't been doing their job. It's just that's the most nonsense headline I think I've ever seen. That's the reason I put it up here. The article, the links in the description, go have you a good laugh at that one. Mental health tips for retail hospitality employers ahead of holiday season. That's a good one to take a look at, actually. There we go. All right. And real quick, shout out to our sponsor, The Serving Times. Poopable news satire for the customer service community. All right. So having said that, please allow me to introduce our guest this evening, Steven Petrivelli. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing well, except for this technical snafu that's going on. That has never happened the entire time I've used this.
Me and some of my comic friends have been quite, what's the word, boisterous about our opinion on AI art. And so maybe the AI is coming after me now.
Well,
so.
and that's what sucks, because the second slide discussed that. So we'll get into that as well, because I think that is a topic worth discussing. Real quick, we're going to check the chat to see if anything. Yeah, Irish store visit does what? Exactly. And somebody's blaming Blame Tag for something. Blame Tag did it. Blame Tag probably sabotaged you and didn't show up. He's working, so I don't know. Like I said, something really weird went down with the system, like right before I started everything up. But oh, look, I've got a bot that wants to offer me promotion for channel views. We're going to block that. Thank you. But anyway, so tell us a little bit about what you got going on, Steven. What's been going on since the last time you were here?
So kind of the big news with it is that issue 4 of Retail has released. I debuted it at Baltimore Comic Con this year, and it got I was really surprised and pleased with the reception that it got. Personally, I think this is the best issue yet. The art is by other Philadelphian named Jay Rollins. Incredible guy, incredible artist, and definitely gives Philadelphia a little bit more of a voice in it, which I really love. And I had one of my very, very good friends, Krista. I always mess up their last name. Krista Hardar. They're gonna kill me for that, but I mainly call her Cabbage. It's a nickname. So
wow.
They came in and helped edit the book and made it a million times better. So
now, the one that you sent me, was that basically final as far as the writing goes? And
yeah. The one I sent to you was done.
Yeah, that was great. Look, guys, the first 3 were fantastic. The fourth one's good. It's really, really good. So when you're at the Comic Cons, I mean, how many have you been to now so far?
I mean, I'd always like to go to more, but I mean, I go to steady at least 2-3 a year, and that's like, compared to some people, that's nothing. Of course, with COVID, cons basically stopped. There wasn't really anything to do. They tried virtual cons, but it honestly just did not work, and it wasn't really helping anybody. So now that cons are back, I've been able to do Baltimore. I've been I'm going to try to get to C2E2 this year. I'm always doing New York Comic Con. Trying to get myself a little bit more out there when it comes to there. But the one thing that I did recently was I actually started a bar con with a local bar called Tattoo Moms, and I think 9 times out of 10, if you talk to somebody from Philly and bring up Tattoo Moms, they're just gonna be like, "Oh, the place is great." And I actually got a couple local Philly creators, and we had about 5 of us total. And just hung out, sold stuff. People came in and bought stuff, and now I'm doing a second one in February. And I'm really looking forward to it. So if there is an opportunity, he's trying to create those opportunities to at least get the work out there and talk to people, and then also help out other creators in the Philadelphia area, and just independent creators overall.
Well, the BarCon idea sounds great because it's smaller, obviously.
Yep.
It's more local and grassroots. And like you said, as far as helping other creators, that's fantastic. I mean, that's a great idea. Now, when you debuted 4, you said that was Baltimore Comic Con, correct?
Yes. Yep.
So what kind of feedback you been getting at these Comic Cons? I mean, I know basically at this point, you're still basically, trying to get yourself out there and still, it's an uphill climb, but, is it working for you?
I mean, yes. I'm still kind of surprised when people I had someone at the comic book shop who I always, the local comic book store, Atomic City Comics, take good care of me. I was dropping off some comics to sell, and the guy just like looks at it. He's like, oh, he's like, wait, do you make retail? And I was like, yeah. And he's just like, oh, he's like, I bought 1 through 3. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. So I did have some returning people, which was great. I always have a lot of new people who come up and talk about the book. And I think the most thing that I hear from most people is it's extremely relatable. And that's really what it was all about, creating a very realistic story about what it's like to be in your late 20s, kind of working in retail. I really didn't want to make it like sitcom-esque. I didn't want to have some crazy shenanigans. Like I wanted to be like, if you're working retail, this is probably what the life is like.
Yep.
And some parts really suck. And then you have other parts which are great. And especially with issue 4, it goes a lot into, family is the family that you make, maybe not so much the family that, you're born into, and how finding those people and surrounding yourself with those people can really help you move forward. And issue 4 is the first time where the whole cast and ensemble really comes together. And that's really what got me excited for writing issue 4, just like altogether, is that all these characters that I thought about for so long are finally getting to meet.
So what's your roadmap? I mean, like how many issues do you foresee?
So I always make the joke that I'll keep writing as long as people keep buying it. But honestly, if no one's buying it, I'll probably still write it. But the plan for it is now, honestly, is in the new year. I'm looking maybe spring. Honestly, just depends on cons and how everything's looking. I'm going to be launching a Kickstarter for issue 5. And that will be the tail end. It'll be the last issue for what I'm basically, for in layman's terms, season 1 of retail. So it's going to be a nice, thick, a little bigger than some of the past books. And that's why I'm taking it to Kickstarter. I'm kind of working on the Kickstarter right now and rewards and going through all that kind of stuff. But I'm hoping maybe probably March, April, when that will be actually launching. And then I'll always, things change. I'll update stuff on Twitter. But that's kind of the goal right now. And then for the next story arc or season or whatever you want to call it, I was actually just talking to my wife and to my editor, Cabbage, about an idea that I had. And they both really liked it. And so I'm very excited to move forward with the project. I had, honestly, the first panel in my head today while I was at work, or the first page, I guess you could say, or first couple panels. And that stuff is still very much in, hasn't really been written, just a lot of ideas. But I have a good idea of where I want the next kind of round of books to go. And the way that I'm looking at it is doing, maybe, 4 or 5, 5 or 6 issue runs. Then I kind of slap those all together, and then there'll be a nice little, in comics, we call them trade paperbacks, or graphic novels, or whatever you want to call them. But basically, it's going to be all the issues kind of smacked together in one. And then so, if you want to just get one issue, you can. If you want to get the whole, if you want to save some money, just get all of them together in one book, you'll be able to get that too. So
I was going to ask you because, I'm a big Kiss fan, and, McFarlane did the Kiss comics there for a long time, and I haven't found one yet because, I need to. And they had like a compendium, that was like all the issues in one. So I was going to ask you if, like, at the end of each quote unquote season, would you, try to do something like that? So
that's the goal when it comes to all of this. If the Kickstarter does well enough, there's ideas of putting the graphic novel as part of it, and so but again, that's kind of in the future. So I haven't I can't promise anything along those lines, but it's definitely it's something that 100% is eventually going to happen. It's just once issue 5 is all said and done. And the Kiss wasn't that the one where Gene Simmons' blood was in the ink?
No, that was the original. That was I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole. That was like 77. But anyway, no, yeah, the 77 Kiss comic, the whole scam was all four members dropped a vial of their blood in the red ink.
Yeah, I remember. I love comics history, and that's Kiss and comics. Like, there's a lot of crossover there.
Well, I mean,
so
entered into the comic verse with I believe it was Howard the Duck.
Oh, Howard the Duck is great. It's so good.
But so let me ask you real quick, like, what's your distribution like? Are you doing all this independent or?
Yeah.
Okay, so like, what kind of time frame are you looking at or hoping for to where it's kind of mass distributed into like comic shops?
So, I mean, that's the goal when it leads to anything. When putting a time frame, that is really tough, and it's for a lot of different reasons. I understand that this book is not what a lot of people are looking for when it comes to publishing a book. It is a black and white slice of life comic. It is indie as it comes. And some publishers, honestly, to them, it stops at it stops right there. And so for me, I have other works that I am working on besides retail. I just had a futuristic Western come out called Railgun, which was so much fun to work on. I have a series called Sweetie. So I have other things that I'm working on besides retail. But retail is kind of like the passion project. The goal would be eventually to basically either have a publisher come through and then get it through the distribution, which primarily is a company called Diamond. Now, if you want to talk about going into monopolies and all that stuff, recently it's changed because Marvel and DC and some of the other comic companies have changed the distribution. But for a very long time, there was one distribution company for comics.
Oh, that sucks. That really does, because they can kind of pick and choose, and it would really hurt, independent creators coming into it.
It's really tough for independent creators to get into like the previews, which is so pretty much how ordering comics goes. And this is kind of getting to the nitty gritty, but like I feel this is an audience that might actually appreciate that. When it comes to ordering comics, a lot of times, and I worked at a comic book store, so I know this for a fact. 90% of your budget goes to Marvel, DC, and like some of the big, indies like Walking Dead and stuff like that. That gives you, and that's like a nice chunk of 10%. Like that's good. Some comic stores probably don't have any, but you could give to independent books. And the way the previews basically works is it's by different publishers. And the only way that a person like myself who does everything, creates it, publishes it, all that, there is a set amount of comics that you would have to have to then be involved in there. And from that, you would have to, again, you basically would have to talk to different comic book stores and hope that they purchase it. I have, one of my really favorite comic book buddies, honestly, one of my best friends, Jared Lujan. He has had a great book called Crash from Troy come out. And it was an indie book. It was a smaller book. But him and his publisher, basically what they did is they had to call. We have a bunch of comic creators. They've compiled lists of comic book stores and contacts. So basically, you're going out and you're contacting them and to be like, hey, this is the book. This is the pitch. If you want, and for them, it was, hey, if you want to order it, this is the order code to do through Diamond. For someone like me, it would be along the lines of basically, hey, is this something you're interested in? Is so, here's the wholesale price, and going from there. So it's a lot of, for most indie creators, and even when stuff is published, I've had books that come out from publishers, the only marketing that's done is pretty much what me and the artist do. So a lot of times, that's all it is. So getting it into the comic book stores is always the goal, because the one thing that I truly love about comics is that once you get it on the shelf, it's the same as everything else.
That, but the way you described it, it sounds really, really kind of like old school. I mean, old school back in the day
It is.
trying to become like a famous musician. You've got a demo and you have to go shop it around and you have to give them the pitch and hope somebody listens, and likes what you do. It's amazing to me because especially with, the retail series, there's got to be some like niche place that you can get it to that would just, skyrocket, and I mean, obviously, you can't be like, hey, Walmart, do you want to sell this? Because, once they start reading it, oh, no, we don't want this. But
There are several publishers that I've talked to that have given me great responses. There's one in particular that I don't want to name, but I've had good conversations with when I, sent the comic to them, that I had a great conversation with one of the higher ups there, and his response basically was like, look, like I really, I always say it's the nicest rejection letter I ever got, because it wasn't just that like this isn't for us. Like he went out his time and wrote like, I really enjoyed this. I thought you did blah, blah, blah. Like I thought you did a great job. This is a good story. At the time, this isn't something necessarily we're looking for, but like, why don't you try Kickstarter? Why don't you try this? And like kind of going on other avenues. And I've continued, kept in touch with him and sent him each, like I think I sent him 1 and 2, and then so when 3 come out, I sent to him 4. And I always say in the email to him like, this isn't me resubmitting. I just want you to continue to be able to, this is me just continuing like, hey, the story's still coming out. Because for them, there's also a lot of risk when it comes to someone who I was actually there's a thing that was going around Twitter today with comics creators about how a lot of comics creators are doing shorter series now, where it's a 4 or 5 issue instead of like what's called an ongoing, which would basically be like, like Spider-Man or Captain America,
right,
where you basically have a new issue come out for years and years and years. And the thing is, and the reason why I also understand so if you have a comic book company that's worth their salt, they're going to pay for the publishing. They're going to pay for any type of advertising they can. They're going to try to, get into comic book stores, maybe try to get you to do some signings. And that they would be doing it with an unknown, with someone that doesn't, for as far as they know, doesn't have a fan base. And for 4 issues, and then they also have to hope that I keep making issues.
right.
Because if I'm saying, oh, I want this to be a 100-page graphic novel or something, like that's the goal, they don't want it now. They want it when it's a 100-page graphic novel, because at least it's done.
Right.
And that they don't have to risk of like, yo, Steve flaked, and so like now what do we do? So I understand it from their point of view. I really do. And there's a book right now that, again, my editor Cabbage is working on and helping me with the pitch for, because I think this is a book that a lot of companies would be interested in. I know retail's not that, and it has nothing to do with the quality of the book. It has everything to do with what I would just say, when you tell people comics, they think superheroes, they think sci-fi.
Right.
They don't understand that there is a large slice of life, kind of like independent scene in comics. And for me, I've loved writing retail. I always say I have like the yin and yang of when it comes to people that buy my books at cons. Most comic buyers at conventions are dudes, and who are wearing a superhero t-shirt.
Yep.
My biggest sellers have been to women, and non-comics readers.
Oh, and see, and that's the thing. I was just thinking, you're kind of doing with the comic. It's almost like, a print version of what Kevin Smith did with Clerks. I mean,
Yeah.
it really is, because you're telling a story, you've got this story that you're running with, but it's like you said, it's relatable to everybody who works in retail. Man, we got to find some way to get this stuff in the hands of people that work retail. And that's the thing. It's like, there's not like, because people work retail and we like all sorts of different stuff. We like sports, we like, music, we like whatnot. And comics sometimes aren't, on the radar. But the fact that it's so relatable, I mean, there's got to be some way, and I can see where like major publishers or whatnot would look at this and like, well, that's a really tricky market, and that's a certain kind of person that's going to want it, and we don't want to invest money in it, and I get that. And when you start your Kickstarter or whatnot, that's where the retail community, especially on like Twitter, really needs to jump behind you and push this stuff, because it's not only a story that you're telling, it's a story for all of us. That's what it is.
And that's that's honestly what it comes down to for me. And why, again, I'm also very protective of it, is because for me, it's telling my story, it's telling my friend's story, it's telling retail workers' stories. There are direct references to things that happen, that's happened to me, that's happened to friends that are in the book. Everyone always says they want to read something that they can relate with, and I could go on a whole discussion about how I think actually Clark Kent is much more relatable than Bruce Wayne and Batman and all that, and Superman and all that stuff. But I'm not. But if you can read a book and say like, "Yo, that character's like me," it really can emotionally bring someone in. And I was having a conversation today with a comic buddy, because he also just had a new book. He had a book come out, and he's gotten some great feedback about it. And for people, I want to tell a good story. That's really what it comes down to. Do I want retail to somewhat be an escapist? Yes. But what my real goal is to, I would love to hear that someone just had a really shitty day. Like, I want them to have a shitty day.
Right.
That's the more thing. But if someone's having a bad day, maybe they had a customer yell at them. Maybe and they read the book and they say, oh man, like I get that. Helps you heal, makes you feel better. I'm not the only one who's dealing with this kind of stuff. And that's what it's really for me, is, just one, letting people see that, but then also letting them know there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that you're not the only one who's dealing with this stuff, whether you want to continue in retail, or if you want to, find something else, if this is part-time, like whatever it is. I kind of go over all of that, is that there are a lot of different aspects when it comes to people that work in retail, and kind of what they're doing for a career. And I want to kind of make it I kind of want to show a little bit of everybody. I want to show the people that this is their career, this is their job, this is people who are doing this till maybe they get something else. And honestly, what a lot of it is, besides bartending, a lot of creative people, comic creators, singers, actors, all that kind of stuff, being able to have something just, to help you fund what you really want to do. And I try to, show that often as much as I can in the book itself.
Well, and given what you're writing about, your source material is like never ending.
Oh, that's the thing, is I already have, I'll say it, because it's not big. So one of the scenes that's going to be definitely in the next one is one of my more recent, just like dear customer things, which was, so I was, because I'm working back in retail, I forget that, part-time, and then working on the book too. And
God bless your soul.
And I had I'll just say an older lady, who, it was about, our store opens at 10 o'clock. And she was at the door like 9:58. I'm just like, store opens at 10. Like in my head, I'm just like, store opens at 10. And so we go. So I remember or someone, because we have you don't necessarily have to unlock it. We have like the push on the other side. That makes any sense. Basically, one of the associates opened the door, said, "Hi, ma'am." I was like, "Oh," because you usually think when someone's there at open, they've got a plan. They said, "Okay, I need to get here at open because I need to go get this." They're very focused. She comes walking in. He's like, "Oh, what can I help you with?" She's like, "No, I'm just looking around." And I was just like, for someone that really that's the thing that I don't. That's definitely one that's going to go in there, because for me, in my head, like the retail, just all the words I word in retail, when someone's bashing down your door, they have a plan and want to do something. They're not just like, "Oh, I'm just going to look around and browse," just like, yeah, it was definitely interesting. And I have more stories from my new work. I have stories that's still from my old ones. I have friends.
See, and that's the most amazing thing about what you're doing, because like it never ends. It's always something new, and that will give the series a life of its own, because I don't think we run out of stories until we die.
Yep. One of my personal mantras has been everyone's life. Oh crap, you can turn anybody's life into a story. It's just how you angle the camera.
Yep.
And that's again kind of what goes to retail. Like there's one in issue 4 where there's an older woman who's yelling at an associate because she believes the shorts are too short. And she's just like, how can you sell these shorts? This is too short. You're selling these to you. And I it wasn't me, luckily, but I just remember it was like, we have no control over how short the shorts are. We get the stock and we put it out.
Right.
Like if you want to talk to somebody, you know, call them or whatever, there's nothing that we can do about it. But those are certain things that I always, when I wrote the book, I didn't want to just be a, customer, just dear customer constantly. There are books that have been done that, Linkage does an amazing job with his parody, with his Onion article parodies, and that's great. When I wanted you to have kind of the full comic story, was to have those sprinkled in for comedy, for relatability, whatever you want to call it. But then also at the heart of the book, having it be about, Mark, his friends, his relationships, and how he's going forward, and, how this kind of stuff is just part of his everyday life. But it's not the only thing that defines him.
Well, and that's great, because that's the one thing that really is true about the business that you're accomplishing with your writing is, you talk about the ensemble coming together all at one time, in 4, right? Yep. It's, we joke or we sneer at the whole, at this company, we're a family. Okay. That's nonsense. All right. But what happens is through the relationships you make in this business, that does become family. And what you're doing is you've got all the good pieces of all the nonsense that we've all put up with in the business, but at the core, you're telling a story about these people, and it's not, yes, it's retail, but it's kind of like Oz. You're looking behind the curtain, with the characters. And that's why I love what you do, because it's real easy for all of us to talk about how bad retail or grocery or whatnot is, because it almost, for the most part it is. All right. But the relationships you make and the things you go through personally and leaning on those people with the relationships that you've made, that's the important part. That's the humanitarian part of it. And I think you're doing a really, really good job of kind of blending that. It's like you have a good insight into where I need to put, the typical customer relationship thing and where I need to focus on the relationships that these people have. And with that, real quick, we got some questions I wanted to get to you real quick. So first thing was Irish Connection asked, does the writing come easy from working retail? Do you have a lot of material to draw from? Pun intended.
So I wish I was doing the drawing. I have incredible artists that I've worked with that are doing the drawing for me. I have a lot of stories from retail and just different things, and even just from friends and stuff like that, that I definitely put in there. One of the things that's in the series that's kind of a little bit in the background and eventually I really want to put in the foreground is this idea that I think a lot of people who haven't worked in a large scale mall, and I mean malls are kind of dying, but King of Prussia, the one, if anybody knows, the King of Prussia outside of Philadelphia, one of the biggest malls in the country, probably one of the only ones that will be left when we're all gone, is how much they can. I've worked at a comic book store where they basically went to them and said, we're going to buy out your lease because we want this other store to take the spot, and we're going to move you. And you've got about a month to get get rid of it, to do that.
Wow.
And that was something that I think a lot of people don't realize is a thing. And like, what's the store going to do? They being in that mall is a huge asset to them because they get foot traffic, which a lot of comic book stores don't. So I get that, but it doesn't, to me, it doesn't excuse treating someone like that, treating a company like that who has been with them all for a very long time.
Wow, you just gave me an idea for an episode. I need to get in contact with like mall managers or stuff because
that would be interesting.
Because it really does sound like the people that run the mall are like, okay, this place isn't making enough money. We got somebody who could utilize a square feet, more dollar per square foot. Mm-hmm. We're just booting you down.
Yeah. And so like that's kind of in there, and it will go a little bit more. But again, like kind of like you said, I am trying to do my best to kind of lean between not only stories of dear customer, but then also things about things that I've gone through when it comes to just being in retail and being in your late 20s and mistakes you make or whatever, kind of whatever it may be. But yeah, a lot of inspiration still to come. So yeah, I'm very excited for issue 5.
All right, so next question was from Hero. Target does the thing each year where they choose a few quote-unquote small businesses to sell their merchandise. I wonder if they do it with literature, too. Have you ever heard of that?
I haven't. It's definitely something that I would want to look into. I'd be interested to see how small they go because, there are independent comic book companies that are much smaller than DC and Marvel, but still pretty big compared to me. Always something I'm looking out for. I think the thing for me though, honestly, is going through comic book stores. I think that's where most of the fan base is. And just because Target picks it up doesn't mean it's going to be in every store. I had a book that went to distribution, and technically you can order on Target's website. It's there, but I'm guessing it's because they have a set allotment, or they can order it from somewhere. It shows up, but like doesn't necessarily mean every store has it on their shelf. Right. But it is available to purchase through them.
Well, I would think that you've got a better likelihood of getting discovered in a typical brick and mortar comic shop.
I mean, the place where if anything's going to come through, like for some of the, I think a lot of people are going to take more risks when it comes to comic book stores. I think they're more, because again, that's kind of like already a niche. So that's kind of like really where we focus. But then also, I do most of my sales actually come through going to cons and just kind of meeting people there and talking to them. And that's probably my favorite, just because I get to talk to people, and, talk about retail, talk about, just, the city or whatever it is, and actually getting face to face with, with people and really getting to talk to them about the book.
So in dealing with like independent comic shops, so we have one here in town, and now you have inspired me to go talk to them and be like, hey, I need you guys to carry this. And it's a local, it's not some chain thing. They just had a grand opening. What's the process?
I mean, really what that would come down to, and every place is going to be different. Some places do cosign, which pretty much means is that they're going to ask for a certain allotment of books. Once all those books sell, they then would give you, basically your earnings, which is going to be, cost. And then you would send them more. Some places will do it where they'll buy it up front. They'll give you the cost up front, and then they put it on the shelf. And then if they need more, they need more. But again, it comes down to, this is all me. And having, distributing it to them, that's on me. Maybe keeping in contact to keep books on the shelf, which is something I still have to work on. That's on me. And especially, this isn't something they can just go to, on one Diamond, the distribution. Just go on the website, put a keyword in and pops right up. Put the order comes over. They'd have to call me. They'd have to email me. There's more steps. And I want to be in as many comic book stores as I can, but I also need to be aware of where I am when it comes to being able to distribute that, having the time to send that out. So it's kind of a balancing act for me to kind of seeing like, okay, like where do I, I want to be in as many shops as I can, but I also want to make sure that if those shops do have the book, that I'm not just sending it to them and, I forget about them, they forget about me. I want to have somewhat of a relationship, and being able to keep the book on the shelf, because at the end of the day, if not only like being there, but if you have a staff that likes you or really digs the book, or is interested in that, there's a higher chance they might even recommend it to someone, or have a regular who really likes black and white slice, like, oh hey, we got this independent book from a guy from Philly, hey, I think you really like it. So it's like, that's the thing. But I think, kind of like you said, like with anything, I'm my own PR person, I'm my own marketing person, my own shipping and distribution, my own accountant, which is probably the worst part for me. Luckily my wife is much better at that.
Isn't it always the wives that are the better with the money? It just is. I have no shame in admitting that. Mm-hmm. Mine's great, but because I suck at it.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of the thing. And I think for me, and you talked about an article about mental health earlier, and there is a huge aspect of it that involves in mental health. There is a large gap between issue 2 and issue 3, and on the back of issue 3, I talk about why, and it came down to very severe mental health issues, and me kind of dealing with that. And I think in retail, when you are dealing with a lot of people who, where I always say, like, what does it take to be a retail worker? You have to be able to have somebody spit in your face and, smile back at them a lot of times.
Yeah.
That isn't good for your psyche. And so, I also need to make sure that I'm not getting to the point where burnout happens, because
Right.
I want to keep making this book. And, I'm starting to, grow. It's weird to say, and I'm sure you also get it, this idea of a fan base. It's a weird concept for me to actually kind of comprehend that I have that.
It's hard to build. It sucks.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
It is. But like, I have enjoyed, slowly, kind of bringing it up, and, I want to be able to keep making the books for that too. But like, also for me, I really love creating this book, and, I want to keep doing it. So I don't want to get to the point where I burn myself out and then, there's no more retail.
What's your turnaround? So let's say I went to this comic shop and said, hey, effers, y'all need to carry this. Here's this guy. Get us. So like, what's your turnaround? Like when you negotiate or whatnot, how long would it take? So you figure you're in Philly, right? Mm-hmm. I'm in South Carolina. So how long would it take?
I mean, the thing is, when it comes to like, if we're talking about from basically when they would reach out to me to when I would be able to get to the books in store, I need to get some more books published, which is a whole other, which is another thing. But anyway, like, let's say like we're at that point,
right?
If they reached out to me and said, hey, I want X amount of books, we would then basically, all it would take was, as long as the discussion comes of, okay, this is what we're going to do for money, we all agree upon that, the turnaround's not going to be that long. As long as, if they're communicating, it really comes down to how quick the communication is happening. Heck, if like, if we're able to get it all done in one day, and I have the issues and I can ship them out to them, I'm going to try to do that as soon as possible. So when it comes to the turnaround of that, that's one thing. The turnaround of actual issues is a lot tougher to say, because most standard comics come out every month. Right. I'm not able to do that financially. It's just not in the pay. I would love to do that, but I just can't. So it would have to be something for me that, I have to basically keep a communication with them if they want repeats, or eventually be like, hey, guess what? Issue 5 is coming out, and kind of give them a heads up on that, so they can kind of keep that in mind.
With what you have going, and like I said, okay, so I've worked kind of, sort of in the music business. All right. Mm-hmm. So, and one thing that was told to me many years ago was, there's a million people that will like your song. You just have to find those million people. Mm-hmm. It's almost like, and not just your comic, but like indies in general, it's almost like you almost have like an Avon setup where you've got like sales reps out there,
Yeah.
you pushing your stuff. And
Mhm.
now that I think about that, the Avon things kind of went the way of the dodo. I mean, independent people. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're doing comics, it doesn't matter if you're doing podcasts, it doesn't matter if you're creating stuff. It's especially with this content. If we're talking about retail and stuff like it, it's such a niche
Mhm.
thing, right? And we know
Yeah.
how many people work in this business, and we know that there's millions
Mhm.
of people that would love what we do. How
Yeah.
do we find them? And maybe this is something as a community, myself, yourself, Adam Cott, whole 9 yards. How do we figure out where to find these folks? Because there's a lot that we offer. There's it's a landing spot for people to tell their stories. For you, it's a landing spot to share stories, to give people some relief and understand that they know they're not alone. We've got to find a way. And, I think your comic's great. I really do. And I have since the moment I met you, and, the moment you sent me the episode, the issues is fantastic. We got to find a way to get it to the right people because we know they're out there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
I mean, and that's something that like I always kind of wonder about. And I've seen there was a recent Onion. I forget, I wish I should have kept it. There was an Onion article that I saw that I was like, this is straight rip from Serving Time. Serving Time, the Serving Times. Like to me, Blaine Tag, Serving Times, like it's great parody, and he does such an amazing job. That I think more people would really get a kick out of it.
Right.
One of my favorite ones was what was it? It was like employee takes like 5 extra minutes on their break, economy crashes or something like
yes.
that. Because like that's what they make it feel like. It's just like, oh, you went over, and it's just like everything's gonna, because I spent 5 extra minutes, now everything, now the entire economy is come down because of me. And so it's incredible satire, and I absolutely, there's a bunch that have made me I thought were very funny. And
let me interject real quick how this Blame Tag thing and I started, and I don't know if he remembers this. He may not remember. So I started the Retail War Zone, and I started a Twitter, and initially I started doing memes. Okay. And I noticed this person kept posting the memes. I'm like, those are mine. And so eventually at one point I put a little logo on the bottom corner so I could track it. And I was like, aha. And I remember him, I found him on Twitter, and I messaged him, and I'm like, hey, why don't you check us out? And he was like, it's very ranty. I'm like, well, yeah, it's very ranty, and that's how it all started. And now you come full circle. We did a Christmas song. He does the Serving Times, and the dude is such an amazing writer. Now, what would be hilarious is him writing a story with you and turning it into some sort of offshoot, because, I will never forget. I sat here in my room and read the entire Serving Times article about the guy who got lost in the stockroom. And I thought I was going to pee myself because I just could not stop. And he's a fantastic asset to the community, just like you are. And that's the thing. You've got the Serving Times, you've got what you do, you got what we do, you got other people who are out there on the same page. What do we do to get it all kind of put together as a destination?
I mean, if I had the answers, I have a lot of, comic creators who don't write about retail, who do write other things that I wish I could also get on there. I know, and like, this almost is a great bookend. And because I won't kind of go into too much, but for anyone that's read issue 4, what we're talking about, having very talented people who maybe just aren't being seen, and it goes a little bit into that. because it's something again that I think about a lot. How I know a lot of creators or a lot of people that are extremely talented, but this isn't a world for the most part where a lot hardworking people they've got to do their 9 to 5.
Yep.
And then they had to go home and do the whole 5 to 9 thing, or whatever people call it, or whatever. There are very few people, unless you are in maybe a nice affluent family, that you can just go out and really pursue, whether that's music or writing or whatever it is. You gotta work your butt off, and I firmly believe that there are unfortunately extremely talented people. Who knows? We could have had the next Kiss band, and we just never. There's a great song by one of my favorite bands, the Mountain Goats, called "The Best Ever Death Metal Band Out of Denton," and it's basically about 2 kids who want to start a death metal band, but it doesn't go anywhere. It's a great song.
And that's a brilliant point, because one of my arguments about music today is everything's a product. It's not like it used to be. It's not like you get discovered playing in some dive bar. Oh, this band's great, we're going to sign them. Mm-hmm. It's not that way anymore, and I'm sure it's 100% that way in every industry, just in the industry that you're in. They're going to look at something and they're immediately going to be like, can we make X amount of dollars off of this? And if they can't, they're not even going to look at you. And that's a suck, because, there's a certain stigma with the quote unquote term indie. Mm-hmm. And that's unfair, because all indie is people trying to shoot their shot and trying to get people to listen and understand what they do.
Yeah. One of, I know we're going up against it, but like one story that really reminds me, one of the first cons I went to, I'd say as a professional, which is pretty much going to network. I've met Enrica Jang, who has a really fun small press company called Red Stylo's, done some incredible anthologies, and Erica Schultz, who has now done work at Marvel, Image. There's a story I really want her to write at DC, but she's worked for the big boys. Mm-hmm. And at the time she was also doing some of that stuff, but she also had a self-published book, and so did Enrica. And at the time, in my head, it's just like, well, people that are self-published, they're not good enough to get published. It's not good. And then I read both of their books, and I was like, these are incredible. These are mm-hmm. fantastic. It has nothing to do with their talent. It has everything to do with, possibly being in the right spot at the right situation, and, just the circumstances that you're given, the privileges that you have, and that's kind of what it comes down to. And, I wish, I could find some way to, that's kind of the goal, is to, kind of help and build up the community. But finding that way of doing it, which is always, of course, it's always the hard part.
Yep. Okay. So it's time. All right. It's time. So we're getting ready to go over the question of the week. Okay. I told everybody at the beginning of the episode that if you're in the chat and you weren't able to participate on Twitter, this is your chance to shine. Now, the first question, Steven, is Hybrid asked, are these going to be autographed?
Yeah, if you want me to autograph them, I definitely can.
Okay. Now,
that's up to the person.
Does this include 4?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
Okay. So issue 1 through 4 of Retail. Okay. Yeah. So give us just a second. Look, he's got them there in his hand. I'm going to post what we got on Twitter. And if you have a response that you want to give, put it in the chat. Give us time to read it when we get back. Okay. But let's see what we got here. So as far as what we're doing, this was Steven's idea. He reached out to me and said, hey, let's give away a series. I'm like, okay, how are we going to do it? And he was the one who suggested question of the week. So here we go. This is what we got on Twitter so far. So I'm going to read them to you, Steven. I'm sure you've already read them. What I'm interested to see is what comes through the chat. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so as far as question of the week goes, Blame tag. The ability to create non-sentient, robotic-minded clones of myself, kind of like Multiple Man. I'd send them to work and then do whatever I want. At the end of the shift, they just stop existing. That was pretty good. Then Karen Harrison said, persuasion. Just allow my point to get through to one freaking customer, which I thought was excellent. We're going to probably, what's the word? Irish already has your comics hanging on the wall, so we'll just say that. Irish Connection. The ability to freeze time. This will enable retail mischief. Karen starts kicking off, freeze, snap back. Now Karen is outside and finds herself mid-sentence in a busy intersection holding 4 fried chickens and a Coke. Hybrid Hooligan. Telepathy and mind control to inflict all the emotion, pain customers and management contribute right back to them and politicians. It would be like the final scene in The Crow where he gives the villain all the pain and all the suffering all at once. I like that one because I'm a Crow guy. Sassy Maggie. My regular superpower that I've always wanted, invisibility, so I could bump into all the customers or close doors on their feet, drop things on them, etc. Peter J. Larrabee, self-duplication. If one of me is working, the other can be resting. Another can be taking care of the family, and one of me can be riding. Then we can swap around. I might almost have enough time to get everything done. And then Grayson Kent. I would have wanted either telepathy to reduce shrinkage or telekinesis, so it would have been easier to clean up the messes people make. So that's what we got on Twitter. Okay, let's see what we got. Oh, what we got is girls18.xyz find your love in your city. You are blocked. Okay. So, wow, that's great. Hero says teleportation of customers, product, myself, whatever. Karen to the middle of the sweatshop or Darren to the fields of organic wheatgrass. Yep, just teleportation.
You know what would be great about that one?
What?
Is that if you got someone really going at you,
yeah.
Like, I don't know how far we can take it. I'm going to see it as a character called Blink where you can kind of just go anywhere.
Yeah.
Be like, some lady's really giving to you. Be like, you know what, man? I'm gonna help you find I'm gonna get you to the person in charge and just teleport her to like the CEO's office. Be like, here's the CEO. You want? He's like, how about you talk to him and then just get out of there.
All right. So the next one is Russell says enchant on them your life, and they know you don't want to be there, but you have to. Yet you'll answer them. The Nightmares in Store. She says, I'd totally want to do some Freaky Friday type stuff. Swap places with annoying customers and just badger them to bits for a whole shift. So, I'm gonna give it just a couple of seconds here. Who else we got? Is that all we got? And then I will let Steven decide who the winner is, and if Steven needs to run back through, I will. Skinny Elephant. Pyrokinesis, so I can throw fire at Karens and burn my workplace down when I'm mad. Oh my God, that's great. And then Hybrid says he's got a new one. Create a clone of them to make them attack themselves. Oh, okay.
Oh my God.
Wow. Okay. So that's where we're at right now. So what are you leaning towards so far, Steven? If you need me to go through them again, let me know.
So I think I know which one I would pick, and this to me goes to, I think, a lot of who I am as a person.
Uh-huh.
I think the one thing that could possibly, hopefully, help some of these people become better customers is getting some type of empathy to the worker and what we go through. The Freaky Friday thing, I love the teleportation, that was winning, but I love the idea of being able to, okay, how about now we're different places and that person has to work the rest of your shift. Maybe then they'll understand, like, oh crap, like this isn't, I hate the term unskilled work or unskilled work, whatever it is, because every work is a skill.
Right.
But like I would love for someone who's yelling why their French fries aren't ready, and then they got to work the rest of their shift at McDonald's. They wouldn't be able to handle it. So the Freaky Friday for me, they were all really good. There were some very good ones. I really liked the multiple man stuff and being able to create duplications of yourself. They're all really, really good. But I felt bad because it was like the last one, but that one really hit me and said, you know what, like if I really like that one.
That's awesome. Nightmares in the store. You win. So what do we do? Does she need to message you on Twitter?
Yeah, I think actually Nightmares may have just started. I think she may have just started following me.
She may have.
But yeah, all she needs to do is just shoot me a direct message, or send me an email, whatever you want to do, at steven.petrivelli@gmail.com, or just send me a direct message and say, hey, here's my address. I really hope you're not international, but if you are, I'll deal with it. But I'll take, and I'll be able to get the issues out to you as soon as I can.
That is awesome. Okay, having said that, congratulations, Nightmare. I'm so glad you're in the community. I think your attachment is via Blame Tag, and all things tie back to Blame Tag, good or bad. So
Ranty was my first one. He's the one that got me in the beginning when issue 1 came out.
Yeah. And
it retweeted quite a bit, and Ranty got me on his podcast. So he's the first one that really got me in there. And I need to catch up with him.
You do, because he's been through some mess. He has been through some mess.
So if you go back in the archives, I don't know how many years now ago, but there's an old episode with me with just issue 1. But yeah, Blame and everybody.
I mean, it's that's the cool thing about all this. And this is something that I won't throw out there again. I don't know how we can do it. I'm just still going to say it's going to be Atlanta. There has to be a retail Warzone con. We have to get all these people together. And all these people have to bring their friends and whatnot. It'd be a good time, really good time. I'd give you an entire hour to stand on stage and talk. Because that's what's really important. And this is something I'm going to start pushing going forward. Is the chat in what we do is so amazing. It's the input from people on the outside that make it all worthwhile. And I would love to be able to sometime in the future have a big thing that we could all just go and do. And I'd love to have you there.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something that I'd definitely love to be a part of. And, definitely something I think we'll definitely need to talk about more.
Yes. We'll be on that. 2023 is coming. I got some big plans. So in 2023, I'll start reaching out to people and we'll see what we can figure out. But having said that, we're sitting at 9:11 p.m. Any final words, sir?
The holidays are upon us, and it's can be really hectic out there, and whether you could be working, I don't know, people's got holiday hours, people are doing close-ins, people have to close the store and be there till 2 a.m. and then have to be there next day at 7 o'clock to open the store, and that, so dealing with customers all the time. What I would honestly say to everybody, and this is just, I can do my spiel by the book, but I feel everyone knows that's kind of what I would say. Everyone take care of yourself. Mental health is a big thing, and I'm very passionate about it. And please, if wherever what it is, but especially during the holidays, it is definitely on the rise of take care of yourself. Take care of others that you love and your coworkers, and do your best to just have the best holiday that you can.
Awesome. So the one question I want to ask is, can we get can we get together and get this Disney episode up and running?
I was talking to my wife about that. Yeah, well, I really want to talk a little bit further about that because I think she's got a lot of interesting stories working at the actual parks.
Yeah, so get with her. I mean, I'm open. I don't have anything scheduled as of right now. Just get with her because that is, I can only imagine how fascinating that mess is.
It's very interesting. So yeah, definitely something that I've talked to her, and we'll have to try to set up if we can.
Yep, and tell her she doesn't have to be on camera. She can give me a fake name and the whole 9 yards. I'll just
that works.
I'll put a Mickey Mouse hat up and we'll be good.
It'll be Mrs. It'll be like Mrs. Retail.
Mrs. Retail. Okay, cool. You guys figure it out and we'll do it. So, having said it, everybody, have a great night. Go support everybody that's associated with what we do. You know, whether it be Steven, Blame Tag, whoever. Go support it. And let's work towards turning this thing into something really, really cool. Because, like I said, I'd love to have some kind of shindig in Atlanta where, you know, a lot of people show up and we can have all these. Can you imagine? We can have a Steven panel, and then we can have a Blame Tag panel, and then we can have a Retail Warzone OG panel. We can get Irish over here to the United States. That would be fantastic. It would be a good time. So, you know, you guys push this stuff around. All right. So let's do something. Let's make it more in 2023 than what it is now. And Steven, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate what you're doing. I love the comics. They're great. And anything I can do to help you, I will.
Thank you. Same, but thank you for having me back on and being able to ramble about comics or whatever it is. It's always fun to be on and always happy to be able to talk again.
Yep. All right, everybody, have a great night. Please stay safe. Do your best at what you do. Don't take no shit, and we'll see you next time.